Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Black History Month. It is February. It is still cold outside, and we're still talking basketball. And joining us for the ride this week, once again, it is Olivia and Tilla, better known as Liv for Hoops, and Wilton Jackson, one of the top 50 under 50 in the state of Mississippi. Wilton, you were just shining this year, man. You got a new job, new awards. It's all coming up roses for Wilton.
Tolly, I'm just blessed, man. That means I might be living right in the most positive way. At least I'm hoping so. Doing something right, obviously. So I mean, I'm just thankful for the blessings and opportunity, and just glad to be back on here with you guys.
Well, you are in the right place, Wilton. Let's talk some hoops here. Let's go SWAC Women because, boy, how quickly things change, right? Like, this is Southern's conference. The Southern women are going to run away with it, and not so fast. Let's take a look at those standings, if you will, because these things have a tendency to change once they start playing games. Well, Alabama A&M, Alcorn State right now riding high. Southern is still in it at 7-2. Alabama State, hey, they have caught fire. Don't count out that team from Montgomery. They're at 6-3. Texas Southern still within striking distance. And after that, everybody else is under 500. All right, Liv, the game that we want to talk about, because we talked about it last week. Southern had a gauntlet of 5 games coming up, and we knew it was going to be tough, and Alcorn State proved it to be just that. They take care of Southern University. Last week, you saw the game. Alcorn State comes away with the win, shakes up the standings. Liv, what did you make of the game?
Yeah, I think the Lady Braves just looked how Coach Kilbert usually has lately had them in the conference tournament. This is honestly probably one of the most well-constructed overall roundabout rosters I've seen lately for Coach Kilbert. Last season, we saw Alcorn really rely heavily on Destiny Brown to generate offense for them, and they didn't have a lot of consistent other threats. This year, we're seeing something a lot different. Obviously, they have Nakia Cheatham, who is an all-around great player for them. She can score, she can create, she can rebound. She's extremely athletic and can be a premier defender for them. And what I saw in that specific game is when you look at Southern's games, they had won every single first quarter of all SWAC games, except for that one. Alcorn held them to 9 points. They are notoriously known for starting games extremely well. So to hold them, to not win the first quarter and to be held to single digits, Southern was already off their rhythm. But when you look at the stats, if you didn't know the score, you would think Southern won the game. Southern got up 55 shots. They had 11 more than Alcorn. They shot 43 free throws. One team shot 43. They missed 15. They only lost by 13 points. On top of that, Alcorn beat them on the boards. They were plus 14. They also had 17 assists. Just Southern only had 6. But this is the crazy part. Southern looked defensively how we would imagine Southern to look. They were causing turnovers. Alcorn had 27 turnovers that game. Southern scored 20 fast break points off of those turnovers. It simply came down to Alcorn was more efficient on the offensive end. They finished the game shooting 48% compared to Southern's 25%. And Southern just can't get away from shooting threes. In the games they lose, I just wish they were not a three-point shooting team. Alcorn sat in the defense majority of that game. They mixed it up between a 1-2-2, a 2-1-2, and Southern could only knock down 3 threes. So it was a struggle for them offensively, and Alcorn having one of the best defenses in the league really helps them. Although they have the 11th offense, they know how to keep opponents well below their average.
Wilton, Alabama A&M remains the hottest team in terms of winning games, but Alcorn is right there. They are gathering steam. How does it look for you going into this first full Saturday of February on the women's side in the SWAC? Are you oscillating back and forth each weekend on who your favorite is?
I guess in a way, Tyler, and for many reasons, because again, like last week we were talking about Alabama A&M, Alabama State, Alcorn. We even talked about some other teams as well, but I think obviously the team to beat right now still remains Alabama A&M. And I know Liv just gave all those phenomenal stats about Alcorn, what they've been able to do, and obviously getting that win against Southern. But let's remember, this is also the same team at Alabama A&M that beat Alcorn already. So, and I think that when you start talking about holistically, overall, probably the best team still at this current point as we get into the first week of February, it has to be Alabama A&M. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way that they've been playing on both sides of the ball. With Alabama A&M being able to get stops, I think the biggest thing that has really, really helped them is the fact that they are able to get rebounds and really, really crash the boards and limit other teams from getting opportunities. And I think a lot of that starts with Jada Belton. But then, of course, offensively, you can't talk about Alabama A&M without talking about Kayla Walker and what she's been able to do, and what she's averaging 13.6 points per game, 2.3 assists per game. And so, again, when you have a balance of being able to crash the boards, being able to run your offense efficiently, they also get to the free throw line a lot too, like 15.3 free throws made per game. So again, when you have a combination of those three aspects, you're probably going to win a lot of games.
All right, Liv, you talked about the lineup for Alcorn State and what you love. We've been seeing it on the screen. This Alabama A&M, their top 5 players. How do you break down their cohesion, their diversity amongst stats with what they do? You got shooters, you got rebounders, you got bigs, you got quality guards. I like the way that lineup looks.
Yeah, I mean, they have depth. And what I really enjoy is when we saw them on this last week against the Florida teams, Moses Davenport against Bethune-Cookman was huge. So they can really utilize their roster to just attack mismatches the entire game. Bethune had no answer for Moses. Moses was 9 for 9 from the field that game, obviously averaging 10.8, 6.2 rebounds. They just have the size, the length, the depth. And then they have Kayla Walker, who, again, can really be a mismatch for any given team, depending on what her mood is and how off the ball she's feeling. And so they have the shooters, the creators, the players that can dominate the inside. And so when you have true depth and can play defense and get stops consistently, I mean, they're going to be really hard to beat, especially with this momentum that they're building 8 in a row. Like when you're winning like that, you're also becoming more confident as a team. Players are becoming more confident in their roles, what they're doing. They have Vanessa Wimberly, who is a freshman who comes off and provides such great energy and consistency for them. So with wins comes confidence. And then that just becomes the mentality of like, we can't be beat and we won't allow you to beat us.
All right, let's take a look at the weekend schedule and what we have coming up for the SWAC. And these are all double headers on Saturday. Guys play Monday, girls on Thursday. But a lot of people have of course they scheduled it. They have circled the schedule of February 7th because of, you see it right there, Alabama A&M and Southern. That's going to be a good on paper women's game. Maybe a little bit of the bite has been taken out because Southern lost this week to Alcorn. But look, if Southern comes and beats Alabama A&M on Saturday, then we're right back in the same situation next week saying we can't figure this thing out at all. Let's tackle the women. We're going to talk about the men later. Guys, what do you think about that matchup? And what's your second favorite this weekend in the SWAC?
Yeah, I think that game, again, anyone can beat anyone on any given night. And I just don't think Southern's the type of team that's going to roll in thinking they're going to lose. And so I think they do have a lot of depth. It's just they need to make sure they're getting that good start. But it's going to be a battle because, like you said, if they go in and beat Alabama A&M, that means Alabama A&M beat Alcorn, Alcorn beat Southern, Southern beat them. And so it's still such a long season till we get to the SWAC tournament, and every single game really matters. So that's exciting. But I'm also loving Alabama State right now. What Coach Johnetta Hayes has been able to do in her first year in this I believe they're on a 4-game win streak. It's great. For last season, they were at the very bottom of the SWAC. To now be, in that 4th place position, continuing to build wins and do it in really kind of dominant ways is really fun to watch.
All right, Wilton, it's going to be jumping at the Baby Dome this weekend. Alabama A&M and Southern. Man, what do you think, Wilson?
No, Liv pretty much just laid out everything of what this game is going to be. Again, you have an Alabama A&M team that sits atop the SWAC that's going to, obviously want to continue to maintain that spot. You have a Southern team that's coming off of a loss. And Tyler, we know this, and Liv, you know this as well. When you're at this point in the season and you really want to, basically continue to contend in the way that you are, you got to find ways to win games. Now, at this point, it's about, okay, we know what this team is going to do. We know tendencies that each player is going to have. It's like, okay, who wants it more? This is what the month of February in college basketball season means before you start getting into the month of March and tournament time. So if you're Southern, do know that they're going to come in, and if you know anything about Carlos Funches, he does not like to lose as a head coach. So you have to know that he's going to have his team prepared. This should be a very intriguing matchup between these two teams. I wouldn't be surprised if Southern came out with a win.
All right, we'll talk SWAC men in just a second, but let's switch over to the MEAC. And Liv, it's just like over in the MEAC, it's like which team is the team of the week? Because just when you think you got it figured out, it's no different than the SWAC. You're like, oh, wait, they lost. Look, Maryland Eastern Shore had a bad week. So let's talk about Morgan State. That's the team that has caught your attention this week, and you really like this trio for the Bears, Liv.
Yes, I've called them, I'm deeming them the Three Musketeers. If you have seen Coach Kevin Broda's team, he loves a small guard, and he has three of them, all averaging double figures. Two of them are averaging, very high assists within the MEAC. And they're playing so well right now. They're clicking at the right time. Prior to the season starting, I said on paper, Morgan State had an extremely talented team. How long was it going to take them to gel? How was Coach Brodus going to get everyone on the same page and coach them to victories? And they seem to have figured it out with those three completely leading the way. And so before we get into the three guards, I really want to make sure everyone knows Marlon Harris, who is their 6'9" forward, really plays a huge part in the success they have, especially when it came to the games against Howard and Norfolk State. In those wins against Norfolk State, he had 14 rebounds and 6 blocks. Against Howard, he had 3 blocks. And so not only their guard play, but they have a forward, a post player who is hitting the glass, who is able to be a true rim protector. But outside of that, Elijah Davis has been in true form, and you may know him. He played at Bowie. He played at Mississippi Valley. So he's almost hit every single HBCU conference. But he's second in the MEAC in assists per game at 5.6. But in just MEAC games alone, he's averaging 6 assists a game. So when you have a player who can play make but also score that you have to respect and actually guard them, that's what's opened up the floor so much for Alfred Worrell, who has just been on an absolute tear. The last 3 games, he's had 23, 33, 34. And then we have Rob Lawson, who is a returner from last year. We saw spurts of him last year, and obviously we know the team was ran by Cameron Hobbs, who graduated. But Rob Lawson has nearly doubled almost every single statistical category, almost 50% more points than he averaged last year. His minutes are up, his field goal percentage is up, his rebounds, his assists, which he averages 4.3, are all up. People should be paying attention to the Bears and really excited about the depth they have at the guard position and how now their posts and their forwards are really coming along to be a true dark horse in the MEAC.
Wilton, what do you say to a fan base, especially, over in the MEAC, which we're talking about right now? You're riding high one week, unbeaten for the first time in 50 years, and then you lose 2 in a row.
Tolly, you tell your fans to buckle up because it's going to be a bumpy ride all throughout the month of February and then going into March. I mean, again, this is classic college basketball and what we're looking for. And so when you think about a team like Morgan State at the beginning of the season, I know Liv because she looked at Morgan State and saw okay, they have the pieces to be a good team. And most of us that kind of understood basketball saw that as well. But maybe some of your average fans didn't necessarily think Morgan State would be in this particular conversation. But again, this is why you have to play the games. And so I think the more fascinating thing right now, if you're telling fans, is man, my team didn't necessarily play bad against Morgan State, or they hadn't necessarily played bad. It's just some of these games have came down to one possession. Morgan State is the king of that right now, right? They beat Delaware State by 1. They beat Howard by 1. They beat Norfolk State by 1. So it's just you have to really play to the very end. You may start a game one way, but how many times have we always said it's not how you start a game, it's how you finish? So I would tell any set of fans in the MEAC, you need to make sure that your team, whatever your team is, Howard, Delaware State, Norfolk State, Maryland Eastern Shore, we got to play to the very end. Like, you just have to do that.
All right, well, let's see where the roller coaster will take us this weekend in the MEAC. We got doubleheaders on Saturday. You got South Carolina State at Howard, Maryland Eastern Shore. Oh, look where they are, at Morgan State. Dell State at Coppin State, North Carolina Central at Norfolk State. Those are going to be some good. It feels almost like mini rivalry weekend in the MEAC. Liv, for the UMES fans who were feeling so good a week ago at this time, what chances do you give them of getting their face back at Morgan State this weekend?
You know, this is going to be a very tough game for UMES. I said last week on our last episode of how it was going to be really hard for them to get back in their flow. The weather is their enemy. They were on such a high, 4-0, and I knew it was going to be a struggle getting back into it, especially while other teams had opportunities to still play their games. And so they're coming into Morgan State on Saturday on a 3-game losing streak, all on the road. So really showing they struggle on the road. I would say, you know, be hopeful. They've shown that they can compete with some of the best, or historically the best teams in the conference. And so, but it's going to be a challenge. They played Monday already. They played last night, and now they play Saturday. So it's going to be a challenge. And I know they beat Morgan State earlier in the season, and Morgan State wants that win back. So they're definitely going to come out blazing and trying to take down the Hawks, and the Hawks want to get back on the right side of the road. And so I think that's going to be the must-watch game of the weekend for MEAC Men.
Man, I think that really speaks to how the MEAC is staying alive and thriving in basketball, because it's almost like every year you're like, oh, Central and Norfolk State are playing, like that is the game. The fact that we have spent all of our time talking about Maryland, Eastern Shore, and Morgan State, I think is a testament to the quality of the MEAC this weekend. But when you talk about a thick burger, is anything thicker than the SWAC men's standings? I mean, Bethune-Cookman is the cherry on top, right? I don't know if you put a cherry on top of your burger, but I didn't want to call them a pickle. They're on top, okay? They're 8-1. But in the middle, it is just all burger. I mean, I think that's like one of those things, you know, that Wilton would never eat because he's so healthy. I mean, this is like a double stack at Wendy's or something. Liv, FAMU and Jackson State were just like in second place within like a game of Bethune-Cookman, and now Jackson State is over on the right-hand side over there now. Look at this. What do you make of the SWAC men and everything outside of Bethune-Cookman?
The SWAC men's this side is giving us our money's worth. I don't know what money there is, but we are getting our money's worth. The amount of talented rosters this season with depth, true playmakers. That is why we are seeing such an incredibly competitive season. I feel like outside of Bethune, which shout out to Southern, because that one win they have over them is holding a lot of weight.
Yes, it is.
Every given night, I don't know who's going to win. I have people calling my phone like, who's going to win this game? Who's going to win this game? I'm like, I can't answer that for you because I really don't know. And don't be surprised if Valley sneaks a few teams. They have been really competitive in a few of their games. And I feel like lately they've been sneaking someone every single season, at least the last two for sure. But the talent is there. It's just which coach is going to win the coaching battle, which star is going to be there and is going to provide that oomph, and which supporting cast is going to give enough to their star in order to help their team get over the hump. So we're seeing teams be able to point out like, oh, tendencies are becoming a lot more like easily seen. So it's just so competitive. But this is what we want. We want a really competitive regular season so we can get into conference, and we usually get shocks anyway, but so we can just see who's the hungriest at this point, who's the hungriest in February so they're not in that bottom four and don't have to play the first day of the tournament, who wants a bye, who wants the regular season. So I personally, as a basketball fan, this has just been really great games that is just really good basketball to watch.
All right, let's take a look at those standings again. And Wilton, at some point during the season, the majority of these teams we felt really good about. Like early in the season, Grambling and UAPB were in, then they were out, then they're back in again. We felt good about Alabama A&M early in the season. I mean, they beat the brakes off Tennessee State. Remember that? Southern, They were picked, they're the defending regular season champs. Everybody was riding high on Southern. FAMU started out on fire. Jackson State started conference play out on fire. Prairie View started good. Alabama State was in there. Last week, I was telling everybody, watch out for Texas Southern. And then they started losing. Sorry, Coach Jones, I must have jinxed you. Alcorn State as well. Okay, Valley, shout out to Michael James. You are doing your job down there in Valley. But, I mean, like 90% of the league, we were like, at one point, we felt pretty good about them. At least 1 week, each of these teams had a great week, and we felt good about them.
No, you're absolutely right, Tyler. I mean, I think, again, it's just the beauty of February, and I think some of the teams that we felt like were going to be right there in the mix, maybe for the duration of weeks throughout the month of February, have kind of slipped. But then again, you're going to see some slip and then come back. And I think a good example of that is Arkansas Pine Bluff and what they've been able to do. You're talking about a team that basically, gets points off of like shooting threes and then really just kind of playing off the fact of Keon Williams and Jaquan Scott. Like, I mean, you talk about key players for the Golden Lions that are really stepping up and really, really making plays. And then you can't talk about, just SWAC men's basketball without talking about Alabama A&M and what Coach Dante Jackson has done. And to your point, that game against Tennessee State in non-conference play was definitely a game that still lingers a little bit. But again, this is also a team in Alabama A&M that has beaten Jackson State, right? We saw that duel that Deshaun Ruffin and Kentavious Dozier had earlier in the season and what they've been able to do. So they're not going to go away. And then, of course, we can't talk about SWAC men's basketball without talking about Southern and what they've been able to do and the pressure that they put on you in terms of getting turnovers against different teams. And again, Florida A&M, obviously Coach Charlie Ward, Grambling State, and Coach Patrick Creary, and even the way that they started. So it's just like, I think we're going to continue to see a lot of what we've already seen from the end of January going into the beginning parts of February, because these games are going to be so competitive. And to Liv's point, we're going to see, put like this, it might not be a lot of money out there, but if it was, we would just see it flying all over the place, because these are going to be some really, really, really good games.
All right, let's take a look at scoring across conferences. We've talked about a lot of the conferences today, and I wrote this article at hbcugameday.com this week, which breaks down scoring across the HBCU conferences. Now, with this data, boys and girls, I did not include Tennessee State. I did not include Hampton. I did not include North Carolina A&T. Not because I was hating, but just because this is a snapshot of HBCU basketball. So we had to focus in on the actual conferences that are HBCU from top to bottom. Although there is Spring Hill and SIAC. Okay, so look, the scoring is pretty much the same. There's not a big difference if you go to a team's game and you see 70 points or you see 74. So there's not a big path or a big swath of numbers between the top and the bottom. But the one thing that I like, guys, I think the nuance is the leagues that have the close games and the blowouts. Like we talked about the MEAC, you talked about all those 1-point wins. Like nearly half of the games are decided by less than 5 points in the MEAC. And you look at blowouts, you're going to see more in the CIAA than you do in the, let's say, SIAC, which doesn't have a lot of blowouts, and they're second in close games, right, at 40%, 39.4. So it breaks down the offensive identity on the men's side. I know I'm just throwing a bunch of numbers on the screen. Guys, what do you look at and what do you think about in terms of the numbers and what they might say about style of play being a little different or even just parity being different across the HBCU conferences?
You can go ahead, Liv.
We want to see close games. And what stood out to me the most when I looked at this was at the SIAC, the 7%, the blowouts of 20 plus. Those games are close. I know a lot of people not all SIAC games are streamed. And so like it's hard for people to really get in to that conference all the times when all the games aren't being watched. But we're seeing competitive basketball across the boards. We're seeing the scores, we're seeing the games, we're seeing an up-tempo style of basketball. And I think it's what people want to see. We want to see people put points on the board. We don't want to see blowouts. I mean, I don't. I want to see games that finish with under 10 points. And so they're giving us exactly that from every single division. We have the stars, we have the points. And so I think it's been an extremely entertaining season on the men's side for HBCU basketball.
Wilton, I say the MEAC, a lot of people love to say, oh, they have the fewest amount of teams, and they sometimes wish gloom and doom on the MEAC, or they expect it. But, I mean, the basketball, you look at close games, and look, the blowouts aren't high. But if you tell me a league has nearly 50% of the games are decided by less than 5 points, I mean, that's going to be a pretty good watch.
It is. And I think when you talk about less than 50 points or less than 50 points, I think it speaks to the fact of the level of defense that's also being played in the MEAC as well. And so when you think about that too, but just think about this, Tolly, MEAC has obviously significantly lesser teams than say the SWAC, but yet their points, the difference in points in terms of total points, it's not that much of a difference. Like obviously the SWAC is at 74.4, the MEAC is at 71.3. So that also tells you that you have some pretty legitimate playmakers and high-level scorers that are also playing in the MEAC as well. And I think that when you start talking about those close game situations, I mean, that just literally screams Morgan State. They've won 3 games by at least 1 point. So I think that, again, to Leo's point, you're seeing a lot of teams not only play competitively, but like this is the style of basketball that we want to see. Yes, you're going to get your points. Like you're going to see people score and, score abundantly or what have you. But at the same time, you're still going to see a balance of good defense and seeing those games come down to the wire, which is what we all want to see at this time of the year.
All right, you talk about individual scores. Let's take a look at who the top scorers are in men's basketball across the HBCU conferences. Again, MEAC, SWAC, SIAC, CIAA. And these are conference games only, so we're talking about HBCU on HBCU action here. Deshaun Ruffin, only player. I mean, it's not even close. He's the only player averaging above 30. Everybody else is, look, you're balling if you're averaging 21.7, but there is a difference between 30 and 21. Liv, here's a guy. We had to do a double take because when you look at conference games only as opposed to the entire season, Prairie View is interesting because they have 2 different leading scorers depending on which set of stats that you're looking at. Dante Horn leads them in conference play. Alfred Worrell for Morgan State, Michael James, Mississippi Valley, shout out to him, and Larry Howell from Fayetteville State. So 3 of the top 5 scorers in HBCU basketball on the men's side reside in the SWAC, but an interesting situation there at Prairie View, Liv.
Yeah, I think that just talks to the tandem of Dante Horn and Terrion Joseph, because when Joseph went down, who was right there ready to give them back-to-back 30-plus point games? Dante Horn. And even as, Joseph has made his way back to the team, Dante Horn is still giving them that push. Like in their win versus Texas Southern, yeah, he had like 23 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. So he's still filling up the stat sheet. So when you can have 2 tandems who are able to give you that push and give you that offensive threats, it makes them even more scary down the line. And we saw what Dante Horn can do when he's needed to score more than what he has to. And I think it just speaks to what they've been able to recruit at Prairie View, because when you look at, they have that tandem of true scoring threats, and you look at Deshaun Ruffin, who is averaging over 30 points because he legit has to. If he does not score 30 plus points, mind you, and he's playing phenomenal. Like, I respect his game so much. They're losing while he's scoring 30 plus points. That says a lot about the supporting cast of Jackson State and how important he is to the roster, that he has to score that much. And I anticipate he's going to keep putting up 30 balls. But the fact that there's 3 SWAC individuals on there just speaks to the level of talent that is being recruited into that specific conference.
All right, Wilton, it's your backyard. I mean, feel free to just unleash your SWAC bias here because the numbers support it, Wilton.
Man, I've told you guys on previous shows already, Deshaun Ruffin is a dog. And I'm not talking about DOG. I'm talking about DAWG, right?
Dog.
Like this dude can do, he can do everything on the court. And I think that a lot of times, even when if you're Deshaun Ruffin, you're going to get you're going to catch doubles. You're going to get traps in corners and things like that. Like he still finds a way to get to the rim. And that always fascinates me. And, they have him listed at a certain height on the roster. Dude is not very tall at all. But I promise you, if somebody said, hey, Wilson, we putting you in the game to go check him, I'm like, nah, coach, I'm not about to get embarrassed, crossed over, potentially dunked on. Like, I don't want any of that smoke from him, right? But at the end of the day, like, you're just talking about a guy who can absolutely just go after and get it. And I mean, it's not very many people that can go toe-to-toe with him and guard him one-on-one. You almost have to, essentially have either a double or a trap or a hedge off of a screen or a pick or what have you. To slow him down in some ways. But I think to Liv's point, I think for Jackson State to continue to go as far as they want to go, it absolutely has to go with Deshaun Ruffin. He has to score at least 30 for this team to continue to move forward.
Wilton said, Coach, put me on the cross-country team. I'll go over there and run some 5Ks for you. All right, well, Wilton, we're not going to let you go out like that. It is time for Wilton to shine a brand new animation. Look at that. Look at him, boy. Look at him. Wilton Jackson's top 10 polls right here on HBCU Game Day. We'll start with the men's poll for Division 1. Look at the paparazzi. They just won't leave you alone. Wilton, cameras flashing, lights flashing. Miles, you could have did a little fade right there. Come on, Miles. All right. Division 1 poll, HBCU men's basketball team. Wilton, I'll give you the honors. Run down your top 10. I see we have a change at the top. Your mind has been changed.
Yes, it has changed a little bit. I put Bethune-Cookman at number 1 this week. I went to number 2 at North Carolina Central, 3 Tennessee State.
Now, Tennessee State was your number 1 last week, right?
It was, but after that loss to Tennessee Tech, this is a Tennessee Tech team that sits at the bottom of the OVC, and again, this was like the second game that like Tennessee State has had to like come back from. Like they were like trailing in this game, and they had to come back from it, and they just did not have the outing that they needed to have as a team that's looking to win the OVC, right? Like they're like number 2 in the OVC, trying to essentially become the leader in the conference. And again, when you're dropping games like that at this point in time, that's not a good sign. So hopefully they'll get a chance to bounce back because they have a game tonight. But I felt like after that loss, and of course, people still are coming for me at times saying like, well, this is the same Tennessee State team that lost to Alabama A&M in non-conference play. So with that loss that they had in conference play, I said, okay, they can't be number 1 this week, but I wouldn't drop them down that far. So that's why I dropped them to number 3. Maryland Eastern Shore, of course, we know they took a loss this week. Morgan State moved up for me to number 5 for all the reasons that Liv listed earlier in the show for like the 3 Musketeers that she likes to name them. I mean, they have exceptional guard play, and that's really what's been the engine that's helped them win games. And more so than anything, their ability and Coach Brada's helping his team or guiding his team to win those close games. I think that's going to travel well when you start talking about getting into the MEAC tournament later on in the month of March. And then with Grambling State, this is a team
of the MAC. Look who's back. Grambling State.
Grambling State, like with Coach Crary, that's a wild card for me because they started strong in the beginning of the season and they have so many like good, solid pieces that could really that gives me the vibe of a team that could potentially make a run. And we already know if you're Coach Crary, like you kind of got some extra motivation after, of course, previously being at FAMU, being at Grambling State. Now you want to show the world like, okay, FAMU could have maybe kept me, but now I'm at Grambling and we're gonna go after a championship. So that's Grambling. Arkansas Pine Bluff at number 7. They've been playing some good basketball. Alabama A&M, again, Coach Dante Jackson. We know what he did at Grambling. So I'm not surprised in what he's been able to do. Some really, really strong wins there for them. One of them being Jackson State that's still holding strong. And then this Southern team. The only team that has this win against Bethune-Cookman is it is like intriguing. And so then I put FAMU at number 10.
All right, Liv, do we have any rebuttals here? Taking a look at Wilton's top 10 on the Division I HBCU men's side, Bethune-Cookman has erased all doubt as the top team. How do you like Wilton's top 10, Liv?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much in agreement. I mean, I think This not including games from last night, because I know he would move UMES down after that third loss in a row. But I mean, I think Bethune is obviously running the table, and they're doing it more and more and more dominantly, like every single game. And so they are by far none the number one team. North Carolina Central, we've just kind of seen they've fallen into place in conference play and have been able to, pull out some wins. And so when you have that type of motion going through conference play, it's going for you. And I think a lot of people then, it's funny when I was ranking teams during out of conference play, it was a ton of excuses. But then now that I'm ranking teams and people are moving up, they're like, oh, but they're out of conference games. And I'm like, you just told me you didn't care about their out of conference, but I've always said I care about it. So it's kind of like a going. I think we're going to see these teams on the men's side move up and down and throughout besides Bethune for the remainder of conference play. I really like UAPB. I've been a fan of them since they made that Chicago trip and we saw them take down UIC. I saw it all come together then. I think they have the height, the size, the athleticism. Keon Williams is one of the best two-way all-around players in the SWAC. If not, he definitely has an argument for the best. Just his impact of the overall game. So yeah, I know I could see 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 all falling off of this after Saturday's games, depending on what happens. So it's a never-ending cycle on the men's side, and I'm honestly not mad about it.
All right, let's take a look at Wilton's Division I HBCU women's poll. Oh, all right, make the case, Wilton. Make the case. Make the case for your top 10 here, brother.
Now, Tyler, I got to say this before I even get into the poll. This was a lot easier to deal with than the men's side because I'm going to be honest, just being completely transparent. Teams 5 through 10 or 6 through 10 on the men's side, I sat there and I had to literally go through each like one by one, game by game, thinking like, okay, this team has this similar loss to another team. This team has stood out and they have the only win against this team. And I'm just like, okay, let's get to the women's side. So on the women's side, I think now with this win with Howard and a loss with Maryland Eastern Shore, Howard solidifies itself as the number one team coming into HBCU women's basketball this week. Alabama A&M, I put them at number 2. Maryland Eastern Shore, number 3. Alcorn, again, playing some great basketball. Definitely significant win against Southern. Helped them get to number 4. And then I put Southern at number 5, obviously after the loss to Alcorn. And then number 6, I put Norfolk State. And then Alabama State. This is a team that is riding high quietly. Like, not a lot of attention is being placed on the Hornets because so much attention has been placed on the Jaguars, the Braves, and the Bulldogs. So I like Alabama State. They could be a sneaky good team that could continue to get some other wins. And if they do, watch out for the Hornets. Texas Southern, I won't necessarily say I'm disappointed, but I'm a little shocked right now. To a degree, because I know Coach Skeet is not happy about some of the things that she saw within these last, several games. But I would like to think that Texas Southern would get back to the winning ways, obviously, as they continue to navigate throughout this month. Arkansas Pine Bluff, someone to keep an eye on. And then, of course, FAMU at number 10.
All right, so as we sit here and talk, it is Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. So, it's kind of midday Thursday. So this does not reflect games on the men's side that happen on Wednesday. We got women's games tonight, and it could shake it all up. So, Liv, I will ask you this. Next week at this time, when we, Lord willing, creek don't rise, all three of us are here together talking. Do you see the potential for that women's top 10 to be in total disarray compared to this week?
In total disarray is crazy. No. As Wilton was going through, I was like, oh, I could see 8, 9, 10 be off of there. And I think some teams are on there simply because other teams are just not footing the bill, to be quite frank. Like that top 6, I would say Norfolk State has definitely found their way. And Alabama State, as I said, they're a team on the rise, and I really, really like them. It's really 7, and then it's like filling in those last 3 with basically potential. Because as you said, Texas Southern has just not played to what we anticipated coming off of last year. But I would say for sure, like 1, 2 are extremely strong. And I want people to remember, all 16 of Howard's wins are against Division I opponents. They did not schedule a non-Division I opponent at all throughout this entire season. I want people to remember that when we're looking at records. But, I don't see it being completely mixed up. I see potential, with the Alabama A&M Southern game, and also Southern having to play a hot team in Alabama State. They're playing two of the hottest teams based on winning streaks this weekend. And so we could see a little movement, but most of the teams will probably stay within that top 10 because they've created somewhat more of a separation than what we've seen on the men's side.
All right. And for the record, Liv, wherever you are this week, I love it. You're like everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You're just like in a big white vacuum, like Liv has just made it to heaven and she's joining the podcast there. Wilton, congratulations again on all your great awards and success that you're having, both academically, journalistically, and everything else. Looking forward to some great basketball this weekend. Until next time, we'll talk to you guys a little later.